Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. I want to thank my sponsors, Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins & Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, ComC.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. So here's an episode for your listening enjoyment.
You can still be a trailblazing entrepreneur while getting directional advice from people who have been down a similar path.
How's that applied to your pursuit of the hobby? Because it seems like you've been aggressive, innovative in the way you've attacked the hobby and built a fabulous collection.
Thank you very much for that. I don't want to say I'm contrarian by nature because I like pop music. I like pop culture. So I'm not opposed to being part of the crowd. When it comes to like where I'm putting my money, I'm always hesitant to put my money where everyone else is putting their money, whether that be gambling or investing or crypto. So when I think about the hobby and building my collection, it really comes down to what resonates with me. And if something actually resonates with me and makes me feel like it's cool or special, I'm not going to double down. I'm going to quintuple down.
And that's even if your peers or your friends are going the other direction?
My fantasy football friends group, I remember showing them thousands of my Luka Doncic cards, and they're like, "You are nuts. You are actually insane." Like April 2019. Okay. So Luka's about to be named Rookie of the Year. And the market for Luka had actually come down a little bit because all the cards had finally come out of grading. So there's this glut of Luka on the market, and I actually tripled down. So my plan was to sell a lot of my Lukas once they got graded, but I saw the BGS 9.5 market was about $40. And I was like, I'm not selling at that price. Yeah. I'll be buying at that price. So even though I'd already had this massive stash of raw Luka, I'm getting back all my graded Luka, and I don't like this market. I'm going to buy into the market. And I just remember I had two blue 9.5s that I paid $500 for. And I think at the peak, those were selling for like $30,000 a piece.
Okay. You had a different experience with Giannis.
Yes.
And so how did that affect you? Because you had a completely different approach. Was that a painful learning experience that you parlayed with Luka?
Basically, it's great to have a 10x investment unless...
Because that's 5 years later.
Right? Exactly. I got back into the hobby as an active collector and buyer in 2013 as a result of going to the National by happen chance. My girlfriend at the time wanted to go to Lollapalooza, and the National was happening. So I was like, well, I'll go to the National during the day and we can do Lollapalooza in the evening. And also at the time I was doing some business with a couple guys in the memorabilia space. So one of my buddies had started up a company where they would go on Groupon and sell tickets packaged with memorabilia. So my company was providing the tickets, and he was networking with some of the memorabilia guys. So he said, why don't you come to some of these meetings with me? So that's how that all came about. Okay. And I had a couple hours on the showroom floor, and it was just the endorphins, the high was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. When I got back to Houston, I was like, our company has a partnership with the Milwaukee Bucks, and we're heavily invested in their ticket business. This guy, Giannis, what if I start buying up some of his cards? And so I bought one or two of 7 different varietals, and they all doubled, and I sold half of them, and then they went up 4x, and I sold out of all of them because I was like, this is preposterous. I turned $2,000 into $15,000 in less than a year from an investment standpoint. That's insanity. But then I just saw them keep going up and up and up, and I promised myself the next time I have a feeling like that, I'm not going to hold back. And that just happened to happen with Luka in 2018-19.
I know, but you mentioned Jabari Parker.
Yeah.
So you could have done the same thing with Jabari instead of Giannis.
Jabari was too expensive.
Who was more touted.
Right, yes.
Coming in.
Yes. Yeah, Jabari's cards were just too high to buy in at. I looked at my old eBay feed via my email, buying the red, white, and blue Prism Giannis raw for $15. And the comparable Jabari was like $50. Yeah. And I was like, I don't have a crystal ball about these players. And the smart thing would have been to buy both of them or something. But I was like, I don't know. I didn't have enough money at the time, quite frankly, to get too crazy. I got lucky.
I won't say everybody doesn't have enough money, but most people have some limitation. A very small percentage of people have no limitations. Whether that limitation is $100,000 or $100, you're trying to figure out what's the best way to spend that. And not just to make money, but to have fun, to have the pride of ownership and all that stuff. And picking the player, the sport, years. Now, there came a time when you cashed in a lot of your Lukas for vintage stuff.
Yes.
And so was your timing perfect on that?
Seemingly, I got really lucky. So looking at the Luka Silver as a foundation of my Luka collection, at one point I had 25 of them. And my cost basis was below $500 for all of them. None of them I was in for more than $500. I just sold them off in tranches between $1,500 and I think I sold a couple at $9,000.
Oh my goodness.
So I got really lucky. I sold a couple of my Luka Blues. One of my Luka Blues that I bought for $500, I sold for $22,000. I had always dreamed of having an iconic collection of the cards that we all dreamed about as kids. I was like, that'll happen when I have some big liquidity event with my company or something else. I was like, I just had a liquidity event.
I'm saying.
It's a
good payday for anybody.
I remember, I think one of the first kind of big iconic cards from that vintage era was a 52 Mantle PSA 2 for $20,000. Yeah. Probably 2.5 years ago. So my first wave of Luka sales went into that. And then I steadily added a 1914 Ty Cobb Cracker Jack that I paid $15 for, and I recently got out of for $55. So I just happened to be like a year ahead of where the market was. Some luck, some instinct. I was like, there's all this hype around active players. Eventually people are going to compare the active players to the past players. They're going to look at their stats, and then they're going to look at the pop reports, and they're going to go, oh boy, there's some opportunity.
A lot of people are doing that now. I think things that have stood the test of time are the blue chips of our industry. Even though Luka may wind up being an enduring superstar, which he's certainly on that pace, the business lessons that you learn now being a successful entrepreneur with a founder mindset, how the hobby was helpful in giving you life lessons or business lessons.
I think very foundationally understanding money at a young age. And I remember going through a Beckett price guide.
Young as 12, you're talking about, or what?
My first ever foray in entrepreneurship was selling baseball cards on the side of the road when I was 7 years old. A lot of kids do lemonade stands. I did baseball cards. And it was very unsuccessful because the road I lived on was way too busy. But someone that my grandmother told me must have been a drug dealer because it was a black Corvette, and they rolled down the window and he said, I like what you're doing, kid, and handed me a $20. And I was like, do you not want any cards? And he just laughed. And I told my grandmother, I was like, I just got $20. Oh my goodness. Anyway, I learned quickly that if you want to sell baseball cards, you got to be where there's buyers for baseball cards, which happen to be card shows. And to get ready for a successful card show, you've got to know the value of your inventory. And thankfully, the Beckett price guide every month would help me get organized around, hey, what are the trends and what directionally is happening with the players? And I learned at a young age, I got burned by that prospecting era of the Sam Horns, the Kevin Moss, Greg Jeffries. Having seen those lessons firsthand is what happened with my Luka into vintage 35 years later.
Because you had that muscle memory.
Had that muscle memory.
Even though Luka's not going down that path, there's still a limit to how valuable and how it can keep going up. And frankly, it didn't keep going up. Correct. Even in spite of his outstanding performance on the court and the team's performance last year.
Absolutely. Greg Jeffries, his cards in 1988 were selling for more than Tony Gwynn's. Okay, just doing those types of basic comparisons, quite frankly, from a value perspective, that's helped me in like buying homes. That's helped me in buying stocks. That's helped me in making bets.
So that's your broader definition of what a comp is.
Yes.
The comp for most people is what did this card sell for last? That's a very narrow definition of a comp. It's what did this house sell for last? But if you don't know the circumstances or whether it's been fixed up or there's other extenuating circumstances.
Absolutely. It's quite frankly one of the reasons I'm more comfortable with cards and memorabilia than I'm in the stock market. Because the data from the stock market is that the retail investors don't do well in the long haul, trying to pick individual stocks. Now I've got money in funds and I've got money in my 401k and stuff. In terms of an investment standpoint, I know I'm better at picking memorabilia than I am individual company stocks. So that's a comp for me.
Okay. People say baseball cards and memorabilia, they're not like stocks because they don't have income and earnings.
And I'm a big proponent of that. But I will say for me personally, in terms of where my wealth is, I feel more comfortable buying memorabilia. But I'm trying to tell people that cards fundamentally for me are a hobby. And I enjoy the fact that they maintain value. I'm not buying them as an investment. I'm buying them as a store of value, which is different.
It's different, but it's still, there's a financial aspect.
Yes.
What the stock market and the baseball card market or any alternative investments, the value is still based on perception. Every price earnings ratio is not the same. It's the perception, is this a good deal for this company? Even though this is what they made last quarter, here's what they're expected to make this quarter. But still, the best investors look at the story behind the story of where the puck is going in cards. Even though you've got earnings, the future is uncertain for companies as well as for cards.
Absolutely. I think about the 1955 Koufax, What we've seen over the last 10, 15 years is it takes 2 steps forward and then 1 step back. And then 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And a lot of cards move in that trajectory. Now look, the last 3 years, we've seen stuff take 5 steps forward, 6 steps back, then 4 forward. It's been a lot more volatile. What I look at is items where I'm so confident in them. Like, I'm not going to take a loss on this item unless I have to. Meaning I'm so confident in the blue blood nature of this particular item.
in the overarching upward trend that will heal any temporary limit.
Over the next 15 years, there will be a time I can exit profitably. Now, look, if I'm over leveraged and I'm forced to sell at a point, and by the way, we're seeing a lot of collectors selling because they're completely over leveraged. Unless I have to sell it, I know I'm going to get appreciation out of that 33 Gaudy Ruth. Maybe not at the prices now, but at the price 2 years ago when I bought my first 33 Gaudy Ruth, I knew I was never going to take a loss on that card unless I had to.
If the Gaudy Ruth is underwater for you, according to what you paid, but then there's a Gehrig opportunity that's a really good deal, would you see that as a trade? The point is, in your calculus, you're figuring, would I rather have this or that?
Yeah.
But you're not thinking, or would I rather have the money?
I never want the money.
It's in the category. You want to be not invested, but you want to have some sense of a collection that you have that you're proud of. And once that goes in there, again, you're not seeing it as a short-term investment in any manner.
Oh, correct. I will have game used jerseys. I will have slab tickets, and I'll have slab cards that I will die with, and my estate will deal with them. I will never not have something to look at or flip through. It means too much to me.
Is that your 100? Is that your 100?
So the 100 is very foundational. What helped me with the 100 is just get very focused and say, look, if I have to upgrade something in the 100,
you'll bump something?
Bump something. Or like the Hannes Wagner needs to get in the 100 and the LeBron Exquisite needs to get into the 100. If I have to make a play to get those two, get one of them, it's going to come from outside the cards in the case.
So you need to hit a home run in your business.
It's just a matter of liquidity at this point.
Okay. Happy for you.
I will own a Honus and I will own a LeBron. And now it might mean that everything else is gone. That like a bunch of my game used jerseys are gone. Yeah. There's one game used jersey that'll stay with me and there's one ticket that'll stay with me. And then those 100. But then everything else might be gone to finance getting that LeBron and finance getting that Hannes Wagner.
Okay.
Even though I'll probably have the cash at some point, I bet the Hannes comes into my hands via me getting rid of other stuff that's gone up. But it's not going to be stuff that's in the 100 card case. Yeah, okay. Which card comes out of my top 100 to justify putting the Hannes in? I've got some modern stuff that can justify.
It sounds like you're an entrepreneur. I was an entrepreneur, and many entrepreneurs are driven strictly by money. They want to get rich, okay? I think that's not the best motivation because you get blinders on sometimes. But to really want to do something that's helpful, that's going to have a good payday, if you have that payday, then it's going to enable your ability to do some of these other things. So it's not getting wealthy per se as much as being able to have something iconic that's very meaningful to you.
There was some friction early on in this most recent boom period from a handful of influencers, and one who I've become friends with, but was not friends with in the beginning, was Jeff Wilson.
Okay.
And Jeff and I have a great understanding now, and his content has gotten phenomenal. And I love what he and his company are doing today. But when they first started, I still have a problem with their tagline of profit off the hobby we know and love. I don't like that, okay? Because early on in the days of Sports Card Investor, he would talk about, hey, the 1990 Emmett score supplemental has gone up XYZ, so I think the 1990 Fleer update is going to follow a similar trend. There were two issues. One, he didn't mention the Pro Set. And then what would happen is these people would just buy up the 1990 Fleer update. It would run from 150 to 650, and then 2 months later, it was back to 200. I don't think he fully appreciated that.
I think he didn't fully appreciate it, but he does now.
He does now.
And he's a smart guy.
Learned.
I don't know that was a mistake, but
he didn't realize his influence.
A lot of times really smart people don't make mistakes as much as they're making a decision based on not all the information.
Perfectly well said.
As he got more information, he realized, he does have some influence over the market in a short-term way. Yeah. You can't prop something up indefinitely. You can influence it to go up, but it's going to find its level sooner or later. And sometimes it's later.
Yes. And so the 1990 Fleer update, Emmett, was undervalued, but it wasn't undervalued by a 300% margin. Now, what I will say is I don't have the right slogan, but profit off the hobby we know and love. It's more grow your collection using what you know about the hobby. That's my mantra. Is I don't care about making money off the hobby. I just want to keep growing my collection using the tactics and tools that I've learned over the last 35 years.
The key thing is it's been since you were a kid.